Welcome everyone. It's amazing to have you here online with Inner Origin tonight. Inner Origin is an incredible curated online wellness store and we are so excited to have you here. Tonight we have the incredible Don Chisholm joining us, who is a man that we all just adore for so many reasons. One is that I think everyone can connect to him so easily. Why? Because he's just like you and I. Don worked in the building industry and he'll share on that for a very long time. He then hit his own health crisis. Through healing himself of his own health crisis, he then has taken his career into impacting the lives of others at a greater level and being a part of a wellness solution. Don is an incredibly driven human. He leads with his heart and also incredibly smart. We love his support within Inner Origin. He has some, and so Don, I'll hand over to you now to share all of your story and wisdom and what you've got here for us tonight.
We are the environment we live in, what we eat, how we think, and the choices we make. We are not our DNA or genes. So we have to forget about that. We have to realize that what we are is the environment we live in. And what I like about Inner Origin is you're creating an education so people can understand the environment they live in and change it, because that is where health begins. For example, 47% of disease comes from the environment, 23% from infections, and 21% from obesity. Only 8% comes from our genes. So by understanding that, we've got to realize that most conditions that we're getting are related to everything else but genes. So are we living longer? The government would like us to think we're living longer, but are we really alive and vital? For example, how do you feel? Not how do you feel when somebody says, how are you today? No, how do you really feel deep down inside? For example, are you tired? Tired all the time, snappier than you used to be, more emotional than you used to be, cold hands or cold feet, wind or bloating, short-term memory, living in a brain fog. And if I give you a block of chocolate, can you stop with 3 pieces? Now, most people suffer from quite a few of those snappiness. It's not you with the snappiness, it's your liver. And many years ago, people would say, oh, don't worry about him, he's just got shit on the liver. Or if you're being polite, you say, he's a little liverish today, isn't he? We knew 50 years ago that snappiness was in the liver, that emotions were in the gallbladder, that sugar craving, which is driving the world into disease, isn't you with the sugar craving. It's your candida that's calling up the sugar, which is the precursor to irritable bowel and thrush. And the products that we're presenting to Inner Origin, one of the first things they do is they start to reduce that sugar craving. Then health just starts to follow from there. For example, disease. Where did disease come from? Disease is just a warning system. If we treat disease as a warning system and say, right, why have I got this headache? Don't go and take an aspirin until you've worked out what could have caused the headache. Am I dehydrated? Is my spine out? Am I exhausted? What is the reason behind the headache before you take the painkiller? And then you can address it. Because if you keep on getting the same condition over and over and you keep on taking tablets, it's not going to repair. For example, disease begins in the gut. Now, science is now catching up to what we've been saying for 20 years. Most disease begin in the gut. And they're starting to prove that Alzheimer's and autism and right across the board, ulcerative colitis, all begins in the gut. For example, melatonin and serotonin is made in the gut. And that assists the brain. So when we look at the condition, we'll generally come back to find out that it began in the gut. If we work on the gut, then we can virtually remedy most situations. For example, half of Australia's population suffer from one or more chronic disease. This is where we've gone to. This is where everything's happening. And there was a figure that came out the other day that said in America, by the year 18, 46% of children under 18 will suffer from at least one chronic disease. Now, this isn't a doom and gloom talk. This is an awareness talk of how things have changed and what we can do to step out of these figures. Alzheimer's kills more than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. And we've got heart disease. Is it curable? Absolutely. And when you understand how simple it is how to approach heart disease and many other conditions, life changes. And that's what I like about working within Origin, because we can get this message out. Have we lost the war on cancer? In the 1940s, it was 1 in 20. In 1990, it was 1 in 10. Today, 1 in 3 people get cancer. And they're predicting that by 2040, cancer will increase by 55 to 60%. Now, isn't this a warning sign to say, it doesn't matter how many billions of dollars we spend on research. If they're not finding an answer with all the money and the time they've had, we have to look at being healthy enough that we don't get these conditions. Autism used to be 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 50. They're estimating between the year 2025 or 2035 that every second child could be autistic. Now, if these figures are real, and the real problem is not being addressed, we have to get our own bodies into a state of health where these things are not going to happen. Senior scientist says 1 in 2 children could have autism by 2050. So science should be looking at why we have so much disease instead of trying to find ways to cure what shouldn't be there in the first place. And that is where I come from. I work in a world where we're looking at preventing people getting the amount of conditions that are out there. There's more diseases now than you can focus on. Where did it all come from? Where did the disease come from? When did cancer become more than just a random chance? 2040, they're predicting every second person, or every person could have cancer. And many cancers are diet and lifestyle related. So therefore, they have to be preventable. 13 types are linked to obesity alone. So if we overcame the obesity, which we can work out very simply by using products that already exist on the Inner Origin platform, there's 13 types of cancer that you're less likely to get. And obesity is malnutrition. It is not people gorging themselves, it's malnutrition. And the foods that we're working with supply nutrition at such a level that the natural byproduct or the natural side effect of using these foods is natural weight loss. Because when the body's in trouble, it stores everything. It's keeping it for the emergency. When the emergency isn't there because you're using products that actually supply nutrition, obesity disappears. And I put this in here. The fact that jellyfish have survived for 650 million years, despite having no brain, gives hope to many people. And when I look at what's in shopping trolleys, I have to really question the amount of propaganda to get people to go and buy foods that are basically not good for them and causing this massive increase in obesity of foods that are unabsorbable. Cancer. Why? Cancer from pesticides. Childhood cancer is linked to pesticide use. I'm going to do a little story here. I was working with a fellow who was doing a massive amount of work with cancer people, and he was having amazing results. And I got involved with him, and he was doing a lot of carrot juicing. And he was getting these people to have massive amounts of carrot juice, which is fine because of the beta carotene, and it was working for him. And I said to him one day, that's a lot of carrot juice. I said, run up a few people's bill for using organic carrots. He said, oh, don't worry about using organic. Just use any carrots. And that really concerned me because carrots or foods, they absorb massive amounts of pesticides and herbicides, which means that those juices contain a lot of chemicals that are detrimental. And then one day he said to me, oh, I'm getting out of the cancer business. And I said, why? He said, because all my cancer clients are dying. And I thought to myself, is it any wonder because you're force feeding them glyphosates and pesticides and herbicides, and the human body just can't take it? So quite often what is deemed to be healthy is good for a short term, but on a long-term basis, if it's not organic and it's not clean, can be detrimental to you in serious ways. The cause of all disease is inflammation. Obesity is the greatest cause of inflammation. If you've got inflammation in the gut, you'll have inflammation in the brain. So when we have a look at all of these conditions with brain fog and all of the Alzheimer's and those sorts of conditions, you've got to realize that inflammation in the gut is inflammation in the... I speak to a lot of people, and a fellow contacted me one day and he said of all these diseases that he had or conditions, and then he finished off in this email by saying, I also suffer from general tiredness, old man's skin on my arms, which bleed if I knock them, and the start of osteoarthritis in my fingers. Can you recommend any of your products? I gave up alcohol 6 weeks ago. I smoke, I have a sweet tooth, and I drink lots of tea and coffee. What do you say to someone like that? You just can't decide one day I'm going to take a product. You've got to have a look at the way you're living and what you're eating and your thought pattern. And that's what I put into the movie I made. It's across the board. And when you understand the simplicity of being healthy, you'll understand what Inner Origin are actually presenting. They have a platform of products that prevent you from going into what you could have had in the future by not having products that are full of chemicals and poisons. So where do you sit? Now, this is a little chart that's in the book. Many of you might know of my book, Have You Got the Guts to Be Really Healthy? It's on the platform. Are you healthy? Are you okay? You know, you're going to be tired in the afternoon. Are you just okay? But then you get a little sluggish. Or you're sluggish, you don't feel too bad, but it takes a lot to get going. Or it's hard to get started. And life is a struggle living in a brain fog. Now, what I want you to do is you choose your benchmark, because everybody has their own. And when you say to somebody, how are you today? They say, oh, I'm great. Yeah, I feel okay today. Okay, but what's their benchmark? If it was somebody with leprosy and they said they're okay, that would be a lot different to an athlete saying that they're okay. So when we work out the benchmark, you've got somewhere to go. If you don't follow it, this is where we go. We get down to the bottom end until disease has reached the point of no return. Now, if you look up one rung on that ladder and think, wow, there's a goal I'd like to make, that's the way to go. And what I didn't put on there is this. How many people do you know who are really healthy? Loving life, all at office, full of zest, 6 hours sleep, work a long day with a good memory and a sense of well-being. How many people do you know like that? And here's one that I doubt whether you know anybody like this, because I only know 2 people who are vital. 4 hours sleep, can work an 18-hour day, never become exhausted. That's my goal. And to explain where I've come from, at age 50, I had a limited time to live. I was probably down to around 6 weeks. So I went away and I started to rebuild my body. I'm now well in my 70s. I have more energy than I had when I was 20. I've got my metabolic age down to 55, and I have a goal, my metabolic age into my 40s by the time I reach 80. My book was based on this. We are not what we eat. We are what we absorb. And the human race is losing the ability to absorb nutrients from food at such a massive rate that's why we have so much obesity and so much disease. For example, in our gut, we should have 500 different species, known species. Every species plays a certain role. Some species break down different sugars. We should have in our gut 1.5 kilos of this good bacteria. We've got to focus on the bacteria or the probiotics that are in our gut. We kill it off every day. And when we kill it off, we lose the ability to break down food and we affect our immune system. What kills off our good bacteria? Let me ask you this. Do you come in contact with chlorine, fluoride, pesticides, herbicides, birth control pills, alcohol, stress, antibiotics, electromagnetic fields? Because any of those things will reduce the immune system, and it will reduce your ability to break down food and get nutrition to the gut. Now, it starts from this, the recipe for having a baby. It's not how you make them. I mean, everybody should have that under control by now. Recipe for having a baby. When a baby is in the womb, it has no bacteria, has no life support. It's there, and when it's born, Mother Nature, in its wisdom, gets all of the bacteria it can into the birth canal. When the baby's born, it should come out smothered in its life support and its immune system. Then it should go to the mother's skin and be introduced to the bacteria that's on the skin. Then it should go to the mother's breast and get introduced to the bacteria that the mother has within herself, in her breast milk. Now, here's the scary part. The quality of that baby's life support and its future for longevity can only ever be as good as what was in the mother's gut at the day it was born. So if the mother's been on antibiotics while she's pregnant, or she's been sick while she's pregnant, or epidurals, forceps, and worst of all, cesareans. Because a cesarean baby is getting very limited bacteria, and if the cesarean baby isn't fed breast milk, it's even worse. So when I'm talking to to parents whose children are sick, one of the first questions, what sort of birth did you have? If you were absolutely vital, the maximum amount of nutrition that you're going to get from food is about 18%. If you're okay, it's less than 10%. If you're seriously ill, you're hardly getting any goodness from your food. But the foods that are exclusive to inner origin have 90% uptake, which means that the cells are going to get nutrition. Now, how this works is the foods are broken down by bacteria outside the body for 3 to 4 weeks. Imagine how good you would feel if you could get all the nutrition from the food that you actually eat. This virtually bypasses the immune system, so you're getting nutrition at such a level that we have to put a warning sign or warn people when they buy their first container of Daily Immune to start with 1/8 of a teaspoon, because most people haven't experienced this amount of nutrition, sometimes for decades. And if somebody gets too much nutrition too quickly, they'll be sitting on the toilet and they'll say, oh, that stuff gives me diarrhea. No, you're detoxing too quickly. So, and it works like a barometer. The sicker you are, the less you should start with. So here's the product, Daily Immune Plus, probiotics and prebiotics, because the food that the bacteria broke down become the prebiotic. And what makes this product so special is the prebiotics are the food source for the probiotics. So let me put it this way. When you take the product, the bacteria are actually fallen asleep. They're asleep in the pot. When you take the product, they wake up and they multiply in their millions. To me, it's the only product I know where the probiotics on ferment and multiply when you take them. So you've got both. Absorbable dense whole foods, which is absolute nutrition. Pre-released vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. These are our building blocks. And if we're not digesting food, we can't get all of this. 14 bacteria strains, daily gut health disorder, just 1/8 of a teaspoon, which is important. And best of all, look at the bottom one, it is certified organic. So you're not going to have to be concerned about the pesticides and herbicides, genetically modified foods, which all have a detrimental effect on our health. But the protein and omegas, I use an amazing product called hemp. It is such a nutritional value product. And I mixed it with 5 lectin-free foods. And if you understand lectin, lectin is something a lot of people these days are having an effect with. that's having an effect on it. Same probiotics, prebiotics, same nutritional value, same strains, lectin-free ingredients, essential fats and protein. And that's what we're looking for. And again, notice, certified organic. We've got the Daily Pets Plus. Now, we've put this together. We've also already had amazing testimonials come back on this one, because why do pets get so much disease? Because we feed them the food that we eat. So we've put together a product, same bacteria, whole food nutrition. It's got the released vitamins and minerals, 14 strains for your pet, and it's certified organic. You just sprinkle it on the top and you'll watch your pet's stools virtually within the first week. Very short space of time, you'll notice their coats will be shiny, and you know, an aging animal can become a playful kitten or a playful puppy. That are in all of the products that I've put together come from food. They're not laboratory made, and a lot of laboratory probiotics have a patent number, which they've done something to the bacteria so that they could have put a patent on it. You can get bacteria from fecal matter, and there's people doing these fecal transplants to get healthy, which to me is a little dangerous, because they already know if they take the feces from an obese mice and they feed it to a healthy mice, that mice will become obese. So using a fecal transplant is dependent on the quality of the person who's supplying the feces. They don't use dairy, and the food bacteria is the one that is in the product. It's alive and vital, and our human body recognise food-based bacteria because that's where we used to get our bacteria from before. So it's time to stop just surviving. It's time to start thriving. We can actually get to a point where we're renewing our body. Every part of our body is renewable. Our blood cells last for 90 days. So if we're using the products that are there available, we're rebuilding new blood cells every day. Our bones take about 6 years. So in 6 years, our skin takes 35 days to replace itself. So if you go on a program, you actually build a younger, healthier body when you're using products that are being made exclusive to Inner Origin. You've got the choice of sick care or health care at your disposal. Replenish, rebuild your body, revitalise it. Use fresh, local produce. You know, organic is so important. And if we're using local produce, we know it hasn't travelled far, and we know it's going to be beneficial to you. And make sure that everything you do is organic, because if we're going to rejuvenate, we don't want to rejuvenate with pesticides and herbicides in our products. There you go. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that presentation.
I enjoyed it. We loved it. Thank you so much, Don.